understand that this man was part of a network. And can you just clarify? You say you're talking to people. Can you just tell us what you think?
Sure. And I put the caveat that it is an ongoing investigation. And I wouldn't characterize it as a network as it's commonly understood, but I am persuaded that he was influenced by other individuals towards these crimes. And so in that sense, I'm not thinking that there are other individuals involved.
So
Are they today when you said
il y avait un réseau.
Oui, puis la réponse est non, mais j'ai été influencé et puis dans un sens criminel par les autres.
So today when you said that you're persuaded he did not come to this act alone, were you speaking more broadly about how he came to turn to violence, or were you speaking of that day he didn't come and act alone, that did he have help that day?
Well, it's difficult to parse that out, but I guess I'm saying I'm persuaded that he was influenced to this act, and not in this sort of classic radicalization, oh, he's gone off and done it on his own. And that's what we're investigating, so that's the nature of the investigation.
Sir, you said that there were opportunities for people to come before this happened. There were opportunities where people could have come forward to authorities. What were those opportunities? What indication did you have that you could have known about this before it happened?
Okay, well, I think that in terms of this man's radicalization towards criminality and violence, it was a very slow burn. And I think that as that began to intensify, people ought to have been concerned. People close to him, both friends, people that he ran across, ought to have taken it upon themselves to say this is getting to a point where we ought to do something. And that's the sort of cornerstone of our terrorism prevention strategy, is to try and get people comfortable with saying, okay, this person is getting a little nutty here, and we're concerned, and we need to take action.
Was he alone in the car? Commissioner, was he alone in the car when he shot the video?
Est-ce que vous êtes préoccupé que ce témoignage-là ce matin, ces informations-là, pourraient nuire à l'enquête quelque part?
Oui.
Alors pourquoi vous êtes ici?
Pardon?
Pourquoi vous êtes ici si ça pourrait nuire à l'enquête?
Parce qu'ils m'ont demandé de venir. Puis ça fait quoi, 4 mois que j'ai des demandes pour le vidéo. Puis j'ai toujours été intéressé de montrer la vidéo au Canada. Parce que d'après moi, ça nous aide de comprendre le phénomène.
Is there anything in C-51 that would have helped you in any way stop Michael Zehaf Bibeau? I think it's relevant.
Well, clearly it's relevant, and I really don't want to sort of use this incident specifically to sort of justify that. But we can do a lot of what ifs and wish I could have. But in terms of bringing conditions, I mean, our submission, what the government is providing that we've asked for, is a sort of lessened or lower threshold in respect to peace bonds, which is not terribly unreasonable in terms of demonstrating a person's radical, sort of aberrant behavior and saying that we need to put conditions on this person's movements, and then, supporting that with the proper oversight.
Monsieur Paulson, vous dites que vous vouliez que les Canadiens voient la vidéo, mais à vous entendre, on a l'impression que vous auriez préféré qu'ils la voient plus tard dans l'enquête.
Non, moi, ma préférence à moi, c'était de montrer la vidéo immédiatement. C'est ça que j'ai dit à vous. Puis j'ai pas eu l'occasion de le montrer.
Même si ça a lieu à l'enquête?
Mais c'est ça le fait.
Mais comment ça peut nuire à l'enquête? Comment ça peut nuire à l'enquête? Et est-ce que vous avez peur que ça soit utilisé, la vidéo, par des recruteurs de l'État?
Oui, deux morceaux de questions. Oui.
So why not refuse today to bring the video, given your concerns?
The pressure was first of all, answer to the committees, and I appreciate that there were conditions that could have let me sort of stand down. Having personally seen the video early, having seen the sort of value of demonstrating to Canadians the opportunity to engage people in preventive efforts to try and bring people's minds to what this phenomenon is. So, and then balancing that against impacting the investigation, balancing that against having, the concern that one of my officers said that I mentioned in there was that, if not us, then who is going to hold back the videos? And if we begin to hold back that sort of information, then that's a whole other sort of level of question.
Are the other people?
How is that sort of impact l'inquiry? Comment ça va affecter l'enquête? Ça va avoir nuire à l'enquête, mais comment? How?
Well, I can't really say how. Je peux pas dire de manière que ça va affecter l'enquête parce que pour expliquer ça, je vous montrerai l'enquête. Qu'est-ce qu'on fait? C'est compliqué et je vous demande un petit peu de patience parce que ça va prendre.
Are the other people you're investigating in Canada?
Examples of what sort of signs were shown in his radicalization? Were there certain groups he was gravitating towards? Were there certain characteristics he was displaying? Can you give us some indication?
Well, I think that there are a number of signs that we instruct our officers and police officers to look for, and they are sort of this increased biasness, this really fervent religious discussion, the fascination, the changes, not fascination, significant changes in his life, his desire to want to travel, his desire to combine that travel with some of the things he was talking about, and they are the things that we heard him talking about. Those are things that overtook his life. And I think when there was an incident that was in the public yesterday around an individual who had never been particularly religious, all of a sudden being very religious. I think, while we're all happy that people are coming to religion, I think you can frame it up in a way that says this is very unusual and people ought to sort of take some issue.
Are the other people you're investigating in Canada? Are the other people?
Can you just clarify? 18 seconds. It's hard to understand for people why 18 seconds removed from a video would have any impact or difference on the investigation.
Well, that's right. I mean, it is hard, and it's something I can't do, because if I were to explain it to you, then I would hurt the investigation. And so I don't want to do that. And I don't want to sort of make a mountain out of a molehill either. Like we're gonna.
Nor do I. But can
the essence of what he had to say, I think, is before you.
Can you characterize the 18?
No.
Are you investigating other people in Canada?
I have to go. I want to thank you, and I appreciate it's on a Friday and late notice. So thank you all for your patience.
Are you
Thank you very much.